The camera shakes inside a small-town bakery just after sunrise, the kind that smells faintly of warm bread and last night's coffee. A woman with cracked lips, messy hair clinging to her face, and trembling hands steps forward as if every inch of movement costs her something. Her voice is barely more than a breath as she whispers, "Please, do you have an expired cake for my daughter?" Behind her, a thin little girl peeks out, clutching a tiny plastic fork she brought from home, hope flickering in her eyes like she's afraid it might go out if she blinks. The staff stare, first confused, then quietly judging, and the mother seems to shrink under the weight of their silence. She swallows hard, bracing for the kind of humiliation that stays with a person, and just when it seems like the moment might break her, a man in a suit watching from the corner steps forward, and everything changes. What he said next would rewrite their lives forever. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos, because if you think this moment is just about a cake, you might want to hold on to your seat. What really led this woman here, standing under the bright bakery lights, asking for something most people throw away, is far more complicated than anyone in that room understood. And what that man was about to reveal wouldn't just reshape her day, it would challenge everything we think we know about kindness, desperation, and the quiet battles people fight when no one is watching. It's darker in ways that ache, and more beautiful in ways that stay with you long after the story ends. Elena, early 30s, a woman who once balanced a stable job, a small apartment, and a life that felt predictable in the best way. Today she stands in this warm Saturday bakery, looking like she's holding herself together with threads. Her daughter, Mira, only 7, stays close to her side, quiet, gently hopeful, clutching that little plastic fork like it's her ticket to something magical. The bakery around them is alive, cakes glowing behind spotless glass, families choosing pastries with careless joy, the sound of laughter and weekend chatter drifting through the air. Yet Elena stands out in the room the way a bruise stands out on pale skin, subtle at first glance, obvious once you look again. She hasn't eaten in 24 hours. Mira hasn't tasted a real meal in 2 days, and today is Mira's birthday. They didn't come for a celebration, they came hoping for an expired cake, something meant for the trash but still sweet enough to make a child smile for a moment. As Elena waits, trying to steady her breath, no one in the bakery knows that she used to walk into places like this without fear, without shame, without having to rehearse her words. They don't know how many times she circled the building before gathering the courage to step inside. They don't know why her life collapsed so suddenly, or how many nights she stayed awake pretending everything will be okay, so Mira doesn't see her break. To anyone watching, she's just another struggling mother asking for something small, but the truth behind her desperation reaches far deeper than a simple cake. It carries memories, mistakes, and a moment that changed everything. And as the man in the suit continues to watch her from across the room, you have to wonder, what does he see that everyone else has missed? Because Elena wasn't always like this. And the real reason she ended up here? No one in that bakery could have guessed. The young cashier is the first to react, rolling her eyes as if Elena's request is an inconvenience rather than a plea born out of survival. Another staff member leans toward her co-worker, whispering just loud enough for Elena to hear, "We're not a charity." The words hit her like cold water, but she keeps her eyes forward. Then the manager steps out from the back, arms crossed, irritation already written across his face as he approaches with the kind of authority that usually ends with someone being shown the door. Mira feels it before Elena does, the shift, the tension, and she gently tugs her mother's sleeve. "It's okay, Mommy. We can just go," she whispers, trying to protect the woman who spent months protecting her. But Elena doesn't move. Her voice shakes, barely holding itself together, as she says, "Please, anything you were going to throw away." And in that moment, the room falls quiet, not out of compassion, but out of discomfort. the kind that makes people look everywhere except at the person who needs help. Inside, Elena's thoughts churn. Quiet, raw, honest. She remembers the woman she used to be, standing in her tidy kitchen, humming while she packed Mira's lunch, waving goodbye to her husband as he left for work, believing without doubt that tomorrow would look just as stable as today. She remembers the scent of fresh coffee in her old home, the warm light, the certainty. And then she remembers the moment everything changed, the moment he disappeared without explanation, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a life collapsing faster than she could hold together. But she doesn't let herself linger there. Not now. The staff eventually return and slide something across the counter, a crushed cupcake liner with a few crumbs clinging stubbornly to the paper. Humiliating, insulting. Yet Elena still says thank you, because pride can't feed a child. What the bakery workers don't realize, however, is that someone else has been watching this entire exchange. Someone who knows exactly who Elena is. He just isn't ready to reveal it yet. The man in the suit finally steps forward, and as he moves, the room shifts with him. His clothes are spotless, tailored, an expensive watch catching the bakery lights, yet his eyes carry a warmth that disarms instead of intimidates. He lowers himself to Mira's height, moving slowly so she doesn't flinch, and asks softly, "Is today your birthday?" Mira hesitates, then gives the smallest nod. He rises and looks directly at the staff. "Bring her your best cake." The words land like a command and a shock at the same time. The employees freeze because they know exactly who he is. Lucas Grayson, the quiet, reclusive millionaire who owns nearly half the block. A man who rarely shows up in public, let alone gets involved in scenes like this. Elena's heart lurches into her throat. She steps forward quickly, panic tightening her voice. "No, please! We can't afford—" But Lucas gently raises a hand, cutting her off not with force but with reassurance. "You don't have to." And the way he says it suddenly makes the bakery feel much smaller. For a moment, Elena can't decide whether to be grateful or afraid. Attention from someone like Lucas Grayson rarely comes without weight. Her mind races through every worst-case scenario, every moment of her life she's tried to outrun, every secret she wishes she didn't have to carry. She wonders why a man like him would notice her at all, why he'd even care. Mira looks between them, confused but hopeful, unaware of the tension pulsing beneath her mother's skin. The staff hesitate, glancing at each other because refusing Lucas isn't an option. Everyone in the neighborhood knows that. As they scramble to get the best cake from the display, Lucas keeps his focus on Elena, studying her with a familiarity she doesn't understand. And that's when the deeper truth begins to take shape, lingering just beneath the surface. Because Lucas wasn't being kind out of charity, he wasn't stepping in just to make a little girl's birthday better. He had a reason tied directly to Elena's past. Years before this moment in the bakery, Elena lived a life that felt ordinary in the best way. She worked at a small company downtown, the kind of place where people brought leftovers to share and remembered each other's birthdays. She was loyal, steady, the employee who stayed late without complaint and showed up early even when she was exhausted. Then life began to shift, slowly at first, then all at once. Her husband grew ill, and the medical bills stacked up faster than she could understand them. She fought through it, working extra shifts, selling what little they had, doing everything a mother and wife could do. And then one morning, he was simply gone. No note, no explanation, just vanished into the world and left every debt, every unpaid bill, every consequence in her name. The pressure crushed their life day by day. Months later, she was forced out of her apartment after choosing to buy Mira's medicine instead of paying rent. People often say survival is a choice, but for Elena, it never felt like she had one.